What's up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of Go Talk of Markets presented by the Give Us a Shot Network. Tonight, joining me on the show is Dougie Fresh, Doug Smith, host of the Touchdown with Doug Smith, and my guy Sports PSP. We're going to talk all things NFL and NBA free agency. Actually, there's some big names in the NFL that still don't have a home. The NFL is still suspending players for a year at least for gambling. Kyrie Irving's found himself a permanent home, and James Harden could end up in Hollywood. All that, so much more next on Go Talk for Marcus.
Give them a shot to do what?
We didn't hear it, dog.
No, it was trying to run it again on accident. My bad. What's up, fellas? How we doing tonight?
Good, man.
Good,
man. Coldest intro.
I wish I could take credit for you. I wish I could take credit for it, but it's not mine. It is the intro of the Give Us a Shot Network. It is a privilege to be a part of such a wonderful, talented group of podcasters. We've got a lot to talk about, and I want to start things off tonight talking about the NFL's gambling problem. There's been a slew of players that have been suspended. Isaiah Rodgers was waived by the Indianapolis Colts for betting $1,000 on a Colts running back to go over on a rushing yards prop bet. Doug, I'll start with you. What's your reaction to, or what are your feelings towards players betting and the suspensions and all that?
Man, it is nuts. I'm seeing stuff, and it's not just like one team, it's multiple teams.
Yeah.
You know, a couple months ago we heard about Detroit, their star receiver who, you know, I think Coach probably ain't feeling them too much now. You know what I mean? Like, it's a serious stuff with the gambling, man. So there's that part where it's probably so innocent, right? Where it's like, man, it's probably online, place the bet. Dang, a whole season? Even with Calvin Ridley, like, all right, man, I see some. All right, you got to warn them. You got to, you know, it's like you touch a hot boiling pot. All right, you burned your hand. You know not to put your hand in there, right? But man, this is coming out of the gate, man. So it's nuts, man. And I think it gets deeper. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not even bigger stars.
True.
You know what I mean? Who have done it, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm happy the NFL is doing something. It can't just not do anything. But at the same time, it's like, golly, man, like, it's a little harsh, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
but what we don't want at the same time, right? We want the integrity of the game, right? That's important. But what we don't want is there to be a situation where someone is overthrowing people who are wide open, right? You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, I got it in with the Italian mob or whoever, so some gangsters or government folks. Or you never know what could be happening behind the scenes. I mean, I'm a closet conspiracy theorist. You just never know, right? So, like, you never know. And what we don't want is that to come into the game. We want there to be zero, especially now that the NFL is back in Vegas, or not back. Sorry, it's in Vegas for the first time, right? The
Super Bowl,
right? And then now the Raiders, was it 2-3 seasons ago, they moved over to Vegas.
Yeah.
You start to think about the gambling. And not that there wasn't gambling before that, you know.
Yeah.
Not that there hasn't been cheating that we probably never even knew about, right? You know, I don't know, man. We've seen cheating happen in the NFL before, man. We've seen ridiculous calls, but, man, if the NFL don't do something, man, this could turn into something so much more worse. You know what I mean? But obviously, some of these penalties, I'm like, golly, like, that's a little harsh, man. You know, and then even the guy got waived. You know, you never want to see that, right? So, part of the business, I understand, but, man, what a week it's been.
PSP, what are your thoughts on the gambling that's happening across the NFL?
I feel like it's a pandemic. I feel like dudes. Look, I get to Dougie's point. Of course, it's about the integrity of the game. You know, the gambling situation. You know, with Vegas, given the fact that the Super Bowl next year will be in Vegas, but the players at the same time. Unfortunately, the rules are the rules. Even though gambling, I mean, it's really not that big of a deal to me. But again, it is part of the protocol. You knew exactly what you signed yourself up for. And you would have thought that players, after the whole Calvin Ridley situation, There's no way it could be replicated. And Lord behold, it happened again and again. And unfortunately for the NFL, this is going to be an ongoing problem unless the players, the coaches, and all these 32 teams come to the realization that we can't be doing this type of stuff unless there's going to be some changes. So for now, the best thing that we have to do is just follow the rules, even though it sounds bogus, but at the same time, you knew exactly what you signed yourself up for.
Yeah.
Okay. This gambling thing, I've got a problem with it. I don't have a problem with players being suspended for gambling because obviously the rules are the rules. And as Germ so eloquently stated earlier today in a reel that he posted on Instagram and on TikTok, this is the NFL's house. The NFL's house makes the rules, right? It's like that old saying your parents always say, you live in my house, you play by my rules. Like, I get it. Here's my issue. My issue is the NFL is the NFL is punishing gambling harder than they are punishing players who commit acts of sexual assault or domestic violence. That's my issue with this entire thing. And you can sit here, and I had this conversation with my guy Guru the other day. Yesterday actually. You can sit here and you can say, well, why are we holding the NFL accountable instead of holding the man accountable? I'm not abdicating a player of any wrong for putting their hands on a woman or for sexually assaulting a woman or for beating their child or doing whatever it is they're doing. But here's the reality of the situation. The NFL suspended Calvin Ridley for a year for gambling. No one in the history of football has ever been suspended for a year for committing acts of sexual assault or domestic violence. And that is unacceptable because what the NFL is doing is what they are saying is they are juxtapositioning gambling to be a worse offense and more detrimental to the integrity of the shield than a player who commits sexual assault or who commits domestic violence. And these aren't isolated incidents. This has been going on for decades. It's like every 2 or 3 years, or recently it's been like every year, a player or two is getting caught up in some type of sexual assault, domestic violence, assault, or battery charge somewhere all the time. We just watched heading into last season. What was the big thing? Deshaun Watson and his issues with the a little over 24 cases of misconduct in that regard. So you cannot sit here and tell me if you're the NFL that you're cracking down on gambling, but you're not cracking down on this. Some of these players are repeat offenders. Some of these players have done this several times, and they get suspended 4 or 5 games, which is a slap on the wrist compared to Calvin Ridley, who was suspended for a year, compared to Isaiah Rodgers, who was not only suspended for a year, but he's no longer in the NFL. He's no longer on an NFL roster right now because of gambling. I'm not saying gambling is okay because it's not. It's in the rules. You are not allowed to gamble, right? Fine, you're not allowed to gamble. But let me just read for you guys 2 excerpts from the NFL's code of conduct policy for players, right? The second paragraph of this 6-page document says, conduct by anyone in the league that is illegal, violent, dangerous, or irresponsible puts innocent victims at risk, damages the reputation of others in the game, and undercuts political respect and support for the NFL. We must endeavor at all times to be people of high character. We must show respect for others inside and outside of our workplace. And we must conduct ourselves in ways that favorably reflect on ourselves, our teams, the communities we represent, and the NFL. If you go down a bit further at the bottom of the first page, it says players convicted of a crime or subject to a disposition of a criminal proceeding as defined in this policy are subject to discipline. But even if the conduct does not result in a criminal conviction, players found to have engaged in any of the following conduct will be subject to discipline. Prohibited conduct includes, but is not limited to, the following. The first thing on this list: actual or threatening physical violence against another person, including dating violence, domestic violence, child abuse, and other form of family violence. And the one right below that, assault and or battery, including sexual assault or other sex offenses. So what you're telling me is the 2 most egregious things an NFL player can do, according to your code of conduct, is some form of domestic violence, some form of sexual assault, or some form of sexual violence. Yet for some reason, year in and year out, we see countless players be tied up in these things, but they don't get punished as harshly as players that gamble. That, to me, is a problem, especially when you consider that over the past couple of years, we have seen a dramatic increase in the number of women who are being employed by these football teams. We are seeing an influx in the number of women being hired as agents, being hired as coaches, being hired as trainers, like all of this stuff. We are in a point in time in the NFL where there are more women employed, not just by the NFL as far as the big office, NFL teams on a team basis. We are seeing more women hired, more in this time we ever had before. What's the message you're sending to those women that you're employing? What's the message that you're sending to the women and the children who watch this sport every single Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday with the occasional, or Thursday with the occasional Friday and Saturday? That gambling is more egregious and more detrimental to the integrity of the shield than a player committing sexual assault or domestic violence. That I have a problem with.
Yeah.
You want to go, Doug, or you can go?
Oh yeah, no, I would say I'm right there with you, man. It's almost like virtue signaling, like you're cherry picking what it is. And it's not just little boys who watch the game, it's little girls who watch the game. When they see a player who's out there being a fool, right? Now I'm all for hey, let's get all the sides of the stories, get all the evidence, right? Because we've seen times where like, man, this person guilty. You remember Brian Banks for USC? He got accused of
he was rape.
I don't want to get demonetized, but SAing,
sorry.
And man, like he turned out like he did all that time in prison, you know what I mean? And he could have potentially just now been retiring from the NFL, right? You know what I mean? So very, very sick. But at the same time, it's like, man, like you're right. You hit the nail on the head, man. I don't think we've ever seen it where a player just gets suspended for a whole year. That's crazy to me. You know what I mean? So, wrong.
But it goes to show you who the NFL is and who they've always been. Yeah. They value gambling and other issues more than sexual assault and domestic violence. So that tells us is that they have a more slap in the wrist when it comes to those types of issues. I mean, think about it. Yeah. Marcus, remember 2014 with the whole Ray Rice debacle? Yep. Remember Ray Rice got 2 games before he was out. Yep. Tom Brady got 4 games for deflated footballs. 4. So what does that tell you? And there was video, there was conclusive proof Ray Rice assaulted his then fiance, now wife at the time. And it goes to show you this is who the NFL is. They don't care. And when they say they actually do care about protecting women and doing everything for women, that's just all lip service. Sure. That's just all BS on the NFL's part. And I just think at the NFL, I mean, it's unfortunate. Again, we all agree gambling is wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. You knew this was a part of the protocol. But to your point, Marcus, you have more of an issue with that than domestic violence, sexual assault, far more egregious, reprehensible things. And we've seen a count line of players. Jameis Winston, he was suspended 3 games for the situation with the Uber driver. We all know Ben Roethlisberger. He was suspended at first 6 games, but it was reduced to 4. We've seen a pattern with the NFL countless times. And when the NFL says that they're going to care more, do more, to me, you can't buy it. You can't literally take them at their word. I mean, this is how and who they are. They've been very transparent about caring about other issues instead of more important issues such as domestic violence and sexual assault. But then again, it's the NFL. What do you expect?
Yeah. I'm going to read down some suspensions that we've seen. There have been a couple of indefinite suspensions. There's been a couple of suspensions for a season, right? First of all, 1983, there was a player suspended for betting indefinitely. He was restated a year later, but he was suspended indefinitely for gambling, right? You come down here in 83 again, someone was suspended for an entire season for vehicular manslaughter. He killed somebody. All right. In 96, Jeff George was suspended for, what are we talking about? For violating the league's personal conduct policy stemming from an argument with a head coach. Like, if you keep going down here, you've got 1 game, 1 game, 2 game, 1 game, 4 game, 4 game, 1 game, 1 game, 3 game. You're talking about slaps on the wrist for committing let's call it what it is, a felony. Sexual assault, domestic violence, it is a felony. And people are getting suspended 4 games here, 5 games here, 6 games here, or getting it reduced later. Meanwhile, you got guys like Calvin Ridley, Isaiah Rodgers. Again, I understand gambling is against the rules. So be it, right? Just because my mom gambles, if she decides to gamble, doesn't mean I can gamble. It's her house. I have to play by her rules. I understand that. But you cannot, when you are a brand, the way that the NFL is a brand, you have to be very, very careful with what you juxtapose to be worse than others. And right now, the NFL is juxtaposing gambling to be a worse offense than sexual assault or domestic violence to players. And you think, you like, let's think about it this way, okay? You always say you have to, we always say, you got to be harsh thing and learn a lesson. Okay, well, if Calvin Ridley was just suspended for a season last season and he didn't learn his lesson, what makes you think people are like going to stop? And more importantly, why are we allowing these players to continue to get suspended for 4, 6, whatever many games and then get it reduced if they're not learning their lesson? It's like every season around this time, you've got a player or two coming up in the media because he just put his hands on somebody, or he just touched something he had no business touching. They're not going to learn. At some point, you have to figure this out. And again, if you're the NFL and you're employing more women, each teams are employing more women now than ever before. What is the message that you are sending to those women that you're employing? What is the message that you are sending to the little boys and the little girls and the women at home that watch this sport on a day-to-day basis? What message are you sending to the wives and the girlfriends of these players who are victims of this? Now, to Doug's point, if it comes out after an investigation that the situation was exacerbated or that it wasn't true, that it was a lie, that's a different scenario. But if we're talking about certain situations like PSP mentioned in the Ray Rice scenario, there is hardcore video evidence this is what happened, and he's getting 2 games. Are you kidding me?
That's crazy.
But if a player goes and drops $1,000 on a prop bet, he's done for the season without pay. You got to make it make sense. You have to make it make sense.
It has to be making sense. And the problem with the NFL is the 2 things: consistency and transparency. And I just think that the NFL, bottom line, Marcus, to your point, what do you tell daughters and mothers and grandmothers and women in general? Basically, what you're saying is we don't give a damn because we're too busy concerning about our money. So we have to do these types of things so that we won't hurt or jeopardize our brand. Hey, I mean, it's what good old boys club or whatever it is you want to call it. But the NFL simply just doesn't give a damn because at the end of the day, they're too busy concerned about their brand and their money. Bottom line.
Yeah, and I'll add this too. Like, oftentimes Hollywood rubs shoulders with the NFL, and we know what a creep show Hollywood is. Yep. We know it's SA everywhere. And again, I'm acronym. I won't get demonetized here, but like it happens like crazy. Jeffrey Epstein, you know what I mean? Like
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, just a lot of creeps. There's always somebody getting SA'd when they were a kid. Yep. You know what I mean? Who's formerly known as Ellen Page, you found out, probably had something to do with transition because, she was sexually assaulted by a Hollywood elite. Crazy, right? You know what I mean? We hear this stuff, and it's not just women, it's men, right? So not to go off in a tangent or go too far left field, NFL, they're movie stars, they're rock stars, they are huge, bigger than some of the biggest actors in the world, right? Everywhere you go, there's some loose girl from Instagram trying to throw herself at you and stuff like that. Some of these cats come from broken homes, and it's just like, man, and it's crazy because like I know tons of people, I know tons of players in the NFL who are just wonderful people, right? Wonderful. And it's a shame, right? Because like they don't blow up other stories for other leagues like this, right? They don't do this for golf. It's predominantly white sport, but you have 2 black guys did something crazy. Let's blow it up all over the news. And Tyreek Hill to smack someone over the head. It's crazy, right? So, but when it comes to a sexual assault, man, we definitely has to be something firmer. And you mentioned about the good old boys club, like some of these owners, man, they could be involved in some Jeffrey Epstein type stuff. Some of these owners could be involved in sex cults. Some of these owners, they're They may have something on the other owner. They may have something on Roger Goodell. I mean, there's just a lot of funny business in the entertainment industry in general, whether that be sports or Hollywood. That
heck, look at Dan Snyder with the Commanders.
Dan Snyder, boom, right there. That's the perfect example too, man. So just a lot of creepo pedo type stuff, man. You know what I mean? So but definitely got to do better for sure, man. Because if somebody's out there, Greg Hardy, you know, suplexing chicks, you know what I mean? And he kept doing it, and he still got chance after chance. He shouldn't have had a chance to come back in the league, man. And I think people should be absolutely terrified if they think they have that behavior, man. Go get help.
And it's unfortunate, and I know we gotta wrap it up. But the reason why people like Greg Hardy and others who do these types of things but still get chances, at the end of the day, to them, as long as you can produce, as long as you have talent, and as long as you can make us money, then by all means, we'll welcome you with open arms. And that's just the problem with the end. And I'm all for second chances. I believe in second chances as long as you learn the error of your ways, as long as you repent, as long as you don't put yourself in these situations again. But with the NFL, to your point, Marcus, you have more of a problem with gambling and other issues than real serious issues such as domestic violence, SA, and you continuously show us to our face. That's the thing that they've been very transparent about. So moving forward with the NFL, you just can't take them at their word until they really actually come to that conclusion. But they'll never will. They'll never will.
And that's the unfortunate reality of the situation. Speaking of unfortunate realities, for the first time in a long time, the free agency class in the NFL is super stacked. And it's not because all these guys have hit the market at the same time. It's just all these guys were waived at the same time. PSP, will start with you this time. We'll just go one by one through the list we've got here. DeAndre Hopkins, who was going to be traded by the Cardinals, of course, ends up getting cut by the Cardinals. If there's one team that could really use the services of DeAndre Hopkins, which team would that be and why?
Some bring up New England, although I don't know how he and Bill O'Brien would fit together, even though there have been reports that have been good. I still can't forget what Michael Irvin alluded to, him saying, the last time I had to have a meeting like this, it was with Aaron Hernandez, and then bringing up DeAndre Hopkins, baby mamas, and stuff like that. I've said it before. The team I would like to see DeAndre Hopkins to is Kansas City, because I think with Andy Reid there as the offensive play caller, and you have a quarterback in Mahomes throwing you the football, it depends on what the DeAndre Hopkins wants. Do you want money, or do you want to win a ring? If you want to win a ring, I think the best ideal situation for you is Kansas City, because they're the prohibit favorites to come out of the AFC West, let alone the AFC. They have the best quarterback, and it's not even close, in Patrick Mahomes. And why not there? You would be the number one wide receiver on the team. Given the fact that Juju is gone, McCole Hardman is gone, it would be you as the number one. Marquez Valdez-Scantling at the number two. Kelsey is still your number one tight end. Andy Reid doesn't run the football as much compared to throwing the football, even though I like Isaiah Pacheco. So why not Kansas City? It seemed like it would be a great situation for you. But if you're looking for money, maybe, who knows, maybe Houston or any other team that is willing to offer you money. But if you're competing for a Super Bowl, the best chance is Kansas City.
Oof. Love it. I love it.
I'm sorry, I just opened my phone to a Titans player that's in jail now for domestic violence. So there you go.
Yeah, I just read that as well. So again,
let's see how many games let's see how many games he gets suspended for.
It's crazy. I know Hassan personally. I know him, like had him on the show, everything, man. I just
very unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate, man. I know he was attacked. He attacked her. From what they're telling us, obviously it's tough, right? Because like I grew up in an abusive household where my dad beat the brakes off my mom. Like I saw this sometimes on a regular basis, and I've seen it where my mom attacked my dad and my dad get arrested, right? And so it's like just waiting for kind of everything to come out. But man, I just it's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. And I'll say this too, like not justifying nothing, obviously, but like men gotta be careful who you bring home to mom. You know what I mean? Like every Instagram thought ain't meant to be a wife. You know what I mean? So obviously it's very frustrating, and we don't know all the facts. I don't know all the facts, so I'll leave it at that. But man, it's real unfortunate, man. Really, like it's outstanding player. I just hope all this gets resolved and we figure out what the hell happened, you know. But where was that? Yeah, so this free agency, man, I would love to see Hopkins go to. I don't think anybody's talked about this, but I think it'd be super dope, man. And it would. I could see this guy possibly throwing for 5,000 yards, man. That'd be Joe Burrow and him going over to play with Joe Burrow, man. That would be crazy if he went over to Cincinnati Bengals. That would be nuts. Like that would be, man. That's a team that is knocking on the Super Bowl door, right? You know what I mean? And the AFC is loaded again. It's still just another crazy year. Dolphins are in the mix. Granted, Tua stays healthy. You know, I mean, but yeah, there's just. I feel like for him, it's like, all right, if you want to get paid, go to Houston, right? They'll probably throw a whole bunch of money. They probably got an insane amount of cap room.
Yep.
Then there's legacy.
Yep. And
is it worth it to take a big pay cut to take and go get a ring? Just do a 1-year contract. Do a 1-year contract with a team like the Bengals, like like Sports PSP took and said, Kansas City would be another one. Kansas City would be fantastic. Mahomes, dang it, man. He's mobile Dan Marino is what I call him, man. He's mobile Dan Marino. And don't be shocked if he gets another ring or two. He's so dang good, man. So, yeah, very, very excited, man. Another team I could take and see him on would be the Chargers. They have injury problems at the receiver position. That's someone, you have a big arm quarterback, Justin Herbert. But as far as a team that's more closer there, more proven, I think that the top two best teams is going to be Kansas City Chiefs, number one, and then also the Bengals for sure.
What about Buffalo?
So Buffalo, I love what they did in the draft. I'll say this: Josh Allen, they fixed the O-line in the draft. Like they got some players, and I think that they fixed the O-line. They probably could have a little bit more depth, but I love what they did. They got Dalton Kincaid. This team could easily be at the AFC Championship next year, very easily. My question is Josh Allen. He is a much better version than what Cam Newton was, right? And I use that comparison because they're both tall, they're both broad shoulder guys. Both are big arm quarterbacks. Cam Newton was phenomenal, one of the best quarterbacks to do it in his prime. But then there's Josh Allen, right? And Josh Allen has, in my opinion, way more weapons than Cam Newton ever did, and still hasn't been able to win a ring with Buffalo. He hasn't been able to, and now he's having issues with his elbow. I'm a big, hey, let's get all the facts together, but there's something going on between him and Stephon Diggs. And if I'm Hopkins, respectfully, I go running for the hills. I don't go to Buffalo. The weather stinks. You probably be out there, freeze your weenie off and not win a Super Bowl ring. If you go to a cold, unattractive place like there, Green Bay or Detroit, it gotta be because you want to win a ring, and baby, you really want to be there. But yeah, I'd probably say no to Buffalo. But of course, conversations have happening behind the scenes. Who knows?
There's one team that I think it's been talked about, but I think because of the history behind this team, we all kind of take it not seriously when we kind of think about players going to this team. This is a team that's in the NFC. This is a team that, I mean, isn't that far off from being the second best team in the conference, right? The Eagles are clearly the best team in the conference. They proved that last season, of course, make it to the NFC Championship, make it to the Super Bowl. They doubled down all that with the moves that they made in the offseason and their draft. But there is one team that I do think would definitely benefit from the services of DeAndre Hopkins.
What you got?
That's the Dallas Cowboys. I
knew he was going to say that.
There's no other team. So like, there's no other team. Let's think about this. Let's think about this logically here. Okay, when you look at the Buffalo Bills, for example, the Bills don't need wide receivers. The Bills need a running back so that Josh Allen can stop running the ball all the time, and then maybe his elbow wouldn't be messed up. Right? I love the Cincinnati Bengals. If you are a fan of this show and you watch this show during football season, you know how I feel about Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and the crew out there in Cincinnati. Here's the difference, right? If DeAndre Hopkins goes to Cincinnati, now you're taking away from Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins, and that trio is already very solid. What I would love to see happen is D-Hop go to the Cowboys because they can be the Bengals with a better defense, right? You have a reliable rushing attack back there with Tony Pollard. You have an O-line that's not that great because it's old, but it's still a decent enough O-line. You have Dak Prescott. While no, he's not on the level of a Joe Burrow, I do think Dak Prescott is top 10 in the NFL. Shoot me. I don't care. You have CeeDee Lamb, who proved to be a number one caliber wide receiver. You have Michael Gallup, right? They need a third guy. They need a third guy that they can rely on, a veteran that makes big-time plays. We've seen DeAndre Hopkins multiple times over the course of his career make big-time plays and big-time moments, and that is who the Cowboys are missing, is that veteran that can make those big-time plays. The defense is there. Dan Quinn has taken care of the defense, and they play championship-level defense just about on a week-to-week basis. I think DeAndre Hopkins going to the Dallas Cowboys puts them over the hump. I really, really, really do. I think it works perfectly for D-Hop. I think it works perfectly for the Cowboys. The Cowboys get what they need, which is another wide receiver, specifically a leader and a veteran. D-Hop gets what he wants, a chance to compete for a championship. I do think that the Dallas Cowboys can compete for a championship this season. It's not just because they're the Cowboys and we expect them to. It's because they're the Cowboys and the NFC is so weak, right? Who's the second best team in the conference? Is the 49ers? Let's say it's the 49ers. Who's their quarterback? We don't know. Yeah. Let's say the second best team. Let's say the second best team in the conference is, I don't know, the Seahawks maybe. Is Geno going to do this year what he did last year? We don't know. Are the Vikings the second best team in the conference? They just let Dalvin Cook walk for a bag of chips. So, and their defense isn't that great because they traded Zadarius Smith. They're like, so like, is it really the Vikings? Maybe it's the Saints. They just brought in Derek Carr. Well, it could be, except Michael Thomas is injury prone and Jarvis Landry isn't there anymore. And Alvin Kamara is going to miss a couple games due to injury. So, like, is it really the Saints? Right? Like, who is the second? Who is definitive? Is it the Rams? Maybe.
There's a lot of hype surrounding the Lions.
The Lions are the second best team in the conference. I'm sorry. They'll win our division.
No, there's been a lot of hype about the Lions winning the division. I don't see them getting to the NFC.
Yeah. Well, they'll win the division.
But the
division's not that great.
But here's the thing, Marcus. Is Jerry Jones willing to give DeAndre Hopkins a type of contract? Because I think he wants CD. But is D-Hop willing to take that? That's up to D-Hop. I don't know if he wants to be in Texas to play with Dak Prescott, given how bad that he was. And look, Dak, I disagree with you with Dak being a top 10 quarterback. At best case, he's probably 13th or 14th, in my opinion. Here's the problem. Jerry wants him to be a number one. Jerry, to me, is more interested in getting players in the draft as opposed to free agency. So I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins is willing to play with Dak Prescott.
What's wrong with Dak Prescott?
I just don't think he's top 10. I think D-Hop, given the fact that he's getting up there in age, I think he would be better off playing with a top 5 or top 10 quarterback in the NFL, which is either Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, or Herbert. Even though, Dallas, he could be the number 2 wide receiver. CD could be the number 1. I just don't see that because of Jerry. At the end of the day, the buck stops with him. Is Jerry willing to do that? Because, again, he didn't mind letting go of Amari Cooper. So if D-Hop doesn't,
I think there are vast differences between D-Hop and between Amari Cooper. When Amari Cooper got to Dallas, Amari Cooper exceeded expectations and was going to play himself into a race, right? So from the business standpoint of it, am I going to potentially overpay for a player who could follow up this season with a really bad season next year? Or am I going to cut my losses now and recuperate? He cut his losses and he recuperated. And the wide receiver core hasn't been that bad except for injury. DeAndre Hopkins is older. Yes, he's also coming off of 2 seasons when he's been dealing with injuries. It's not like this is the D-Hop this isn't the D-Hop that was fresh off of being the first player ever to not drop a single pass that was targeted. Like, this isn't that D-Hop. We're several seasons removed from that D-Hop. And more importantly, he's older and he's been dealing with injury. So the price tag on D-Hop, theoretically, comparatively to what the price tag would have been for Amari Cooper, is much, much cheaper. Even if DeAndre Hopkins wants CeeDee Lamb type money somewhere in that stratosphere, Amari Cooper, coming off of what he did in Dallas, Amari Cooper would have been one of the highest paid wide receivers in football if Jerry Jones paid him because of what he was doing in Dallas. CeeDee Lamb is not one of the highest paid receivers in football. And so even if it takes paying D-Hop CeeDee Lamb money comparatively, that's still a better deal at this point in D-Hop's career than potentially overpaying for an Amari Cooper who could have easily played not up to expectations. We've seen it happen all the time, not just in football, across sports. Perfect example. Jordan Poole last year in basketball. He in 2022, he helped them win a championship. He got that big payday. What do you do in 2023? Nothing. Like we see players a lot, they get paid, and then the following season after the contract year, they regress back down to the mean, and they're not who they were previously. So I understand the point about Amari Cooper, and I'm not disregarding it, because you're right. Jerry Jones does make all the final decisions, and if there's one thing I've always said, it's that owner Jerry Jones need to fire GM Jerry Jones. That's the only way the Cowboys can get to any sort of prosperity.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem. But comparatively, if we're just comparing the price tags, Amari Cooper's price tag coming off of the seasons he had would have been much higher than whatever DeAndre Hopkins' price tag is now, considering that he's older and he's coming off of injury. So I think in that regard, it would be justifiable.
Well, it was easier paying. Well, it was easy paying Amari Cooper that type of money because at that point he was producing. He at a Pro Bowl caliber level, and he was their number one target until they drafted CeeDee Lamb back in 2020. Plus, CeeDee wears 88, which is a very unique number considering all the other players who wore that number: Drew Pearson, Michael Irvin, Des Bryant. It's up to DeAndre whether or not if he wants to take a pay cut. And plus, the NFC, other than Philly, I still say San Francisco is the second best team in the NFL. Regardless of the quarterback situation, I still think they have one of the elite defenses in the NFL, and I still trust Kyle Shanahan as a play caller. I felt like he made the mistake by trading up in the draft just to take Trey Lance. I felt like he should have went with Mac Jones. Not to say that Mac Jones is going to be this great generational quarterback, but I believe he was a better fit for the offense with Kyle Shanahan, the West Coast offense to play action, as opposed to Trey Lance, who only played one game at North Dakota State in 2020, albeit because of the pandemic, and you only took him because of the upside, the size, the arm, the potential. But back to D-Hop. Buffalo, no, because I don't know about Buffalo. They would only consider it because of the whole thing with Stephon Diggs. We don't know what's going to happen with Stephon Diggs. Bengals, yeah, I would love that, but you would have to make D-Hop at best number 3. Jamar's your number 1. T. Higgins is your number 2. Either D-Hop your 3 or Tyler Boyd at 4, or vice versa. Kansas City seems like the best ideal situation because best chance for him to compete and win for a Super Bowl. I get an opportunity to play with the best quarterback, let alone the best player in football. I have a guy in Andy Reid who is known for giving players opportunities. He's known for giving players opportunities. He's coach friendly. Andy Reid is one of the most beloved head coaches in the NFL. And when you have Kelsey and when you have guys like Mahomes who've been there, done that, established a culture, knows exactly what it takes in order to win, why not, if you're D-Hop, you go over there? I can understand the Cowboys, Texas state with no income taxes, and maybe if Jerry decides to stay out of his way. And that is the problem why I'm leery with the Cowboys, because it's Jerry. He ain't just the owner. He's the GM. And Jerry, I don't trust when it comes to both, because I feel like his ego is going to get in the way, which is why if I was a Cowboys fan, I would feel more comfortable with Stephen Jones, because Stephen Jones, to me, even though he's younger and he's the son of Jerry, he's more wise when it comes to his decisions. Remember, he talked Jerry out of drafting Johnny Manziel and instead going with Zach Martin. Jerry, I just don't know. I just don't trust him. In Kansas City, Andy Reid, player-friendly head coach, a well-beloved head coach, brilliant offensive mind, the best quarterback in the NFL. Yes, I'll take a pay cut, but it's going to help me as far as getting to a Super Bowl and winning one. So why not Kansas City?
I don't think there's anything wrong with Kansas City. They're the best team in football. I just think that when you look at the AFC, despite the Kansas City Chiefs being the best team in football, there are still a lot more obstacles in the Chiefs' way than there are in the way of the Philadelphia Eagles. And the only teams that can stop the Eagles are the teams that can stop the other teams. And there's really only two teams we're talking about here. Like, I understand the hype around the Lions. I understand what the Saints could do with Derek Carr. There's only two teams that can knock off the Eagles. It's the 49ers, it's the Cowboys. That's it. When you look at the AFC, you've got the Jets, maybe the Dolphins, maybe the Bills, maybe the Chargers, maybe the Broncos, maybe. Like, there's a lot of different teams. The Ravens, maybe the Bengals, maybe the Browns. Like, there's a lot of different teams in the AFC that could potentially knock out the Chiefs, just on the simple fact that somebody has to potentially. If you are DeAndre Hopkins, technically, the easiest road to a Super Bowl, as far as the road of less resistance, is a team in the NFC, because you don't have to go through as much. The path isn't as daunting. And unfortunately for DeAndre Hopkins, the best team in the NFC isn't shopping around for a wide receiver. If they were, he goes to Philly. Philly wins a Super Bowl this year. Not the case. The Eagles aren't shopping for a wide receiver. So that's unfortunate.
Cowboys, you mean?
No. I meant the Eagles are the best team in the conference. If the Eagles were shopping for a wide receiver, I would think he should go there. But they're not. They're set. They're ready
loaded.
to rock and roll with what they've got. Absolutely. Now, I do want to get into Ezekiel Elliott before Doug has to get out of there. Doug, where should Zeke go? Because Zeke also has not been signed since being cut by the Cowboys about a month or so ago.
Yeah, man. It's hopefully he got over the burn of the Cowboys, man. I can't say I didn't see it coming, but I think he could be very reliable to a team. You know what I mean? I think he's somebody who offers, you know, he will beef up your backfield. I could definitely see him playing for Arizona Cardinals. I could see him playing for a backfield that has suffered from injuries. Even though Austin Eckler held it down last year for the Chargers, I could take and see that. A lot of backfields got better. You know what I mean? We see the Saints and their backfield looks amazing. You know, we see the Seattle Seahawks backfield looks amazing. Dolphins, if we get Dalvin Cook, it's going to be even more amazing, right? A team that I would love, absolutely love, and a great person for him to learn from also could be the Atlanta Falcons, right? Now they got their franchise guy in the draft, man. You know, I'm so excited to see that action. We could potentially see the next LaDainian Tomlinson, but I think it's also great to have a veteran guy in there where it's 4th and 1. You know what I mean? If your guy needs to take a break, or hey, he may have dropped the ball or something like that, have a guy like Zeke who's been in the league for 7-8 years now. I think that would be great. So I definitely see him playing a support role. Definitely not a running back number one, but there's a lot of teams around the NFL that could definitely take and use them. And if I had to choose one, I'd probably have to go with the Atlanta Falcons for sure.
Personal opinion before PSP goes, I do think that the Bijan Robinson pick was not a good pick for the Falcons. Good.
I'll add on to that. I felt like the Falcons made a bad choice. I thought they should have went with Jalen Carter, regardless of the situation. I just figured he was the best player available, and you bring him back home. And before the Cowboys, the only reason why I'm not sure about the Cowboys, because the one team that hurts the Cowboys is the Cowboys. They're prone to doing dumb things when it counts most. So I'm leery on that. As for Zeke, it's sad. It's very unfortunate, but it's not surprising because the running backs, man. Like when you get to 26, 27, Zeke's about to be 28 in July. Mm-hmm. That's like a death sentence. That's like 55 years in running back standards. That's like done. Out you go. And we're seeing that with Dalvin Cook now, who, mind you, the past 4 consecutive seasons has over 1,000 rushing yards and 43 touchdowns, and a perennial Pro Bowl running back. So I don't know where Zeke lies, maybe with the Chargers. As for Dalvin Cook, either Buffalo or Miami.
I know they just drafted a running back, but they've also lost their 2 running backs because of trade and free agency. I think Zeke should go to the Lions. I think that'd be a nice fit.
He could be a touchdown machine with also Jamal Williams.
Jameer Gibbs, excuse me.
Jamal Williams. Saints, I forgot.
Jameer Gibbs needs a vet to learn from. And I think Ezekiel Elliott in Detroit would be nice. Now, that is me putting my Packer bias aside because I don't want to have to deal with Ezekiel Elliott twice a year. But objectively, when you look at the Lions and you look at what they're bringing in, their defense is getting better. It's crazy to say that when they fielded quite literally statistically the worst defense ever to step foot on the field last season, but it's a young defense. You have to expect that with another year of experience, they can get better, right? You look at their wide receiver room, it's going to be with Amon St. Brown, Jamison Williams is going to be playing an entire year of football now because he won't be injured, so he'll have another year under his belt. Jared Goff is playing serviceable football for the Lions to be their bridge quarterback for another year or two. This team can win the division. This team likely will win the division. And I think adding Ezekiel Elliott to that, having that thunder and lightning type of approach in your backfield has seemed to be working for a lot of NFL running back duos over the past couple of seasons. Look at Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, right? Look at Derrick Henry and whoever else in Tennessee over the past couple of seasons. Look at Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, who are really the resurgence of the thunder and lightning duos in the running back room, right? So as you continue to go through and you look at the Detroit Lions and you look at what they're trying to do for this season, I think Ezekiel Elliott would fit nicely in with them. The only other team that I think could pick up the phone and call maybe is the Panthers for all the same reasons. I do know they just went out there and got Miles Sanders this offseason, so maybe not. But again, for all the same reasons, they're trying to build around Bryce Young, take as much pressure off him as possible. The Panthers could make the playoffs this season. Like, their defense is one of the best defenses in football when they're healthy. They have a solid wide receiver room. Is it one of the flashiest? No, but they've got some pass catchers out there. The O-line's getting better. They got a new head coach in there in Frank Reich. They got their guy. They have Miles Sanders. They could easily bring in Ezekiel Elliott and be beneficial. If I had to pick between the two, though, I would 100% pick the Detroit Lions. I think it'd be a better fit, and I think the Detroit Lions are more likely to make the playoffs than the Panthers are. And so for that reason, I think if the Lions have the cap space, and if the Lions aren't concerned about the injury, and the decline that we've seen of Zeke over the past couple seasons, I think they should be the ones to pick up the phone and ask Zeke for some service because they could benefit from it a lot.
And plus, you can also utilize Zeke in goal line situations, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, 4th and 2. So you don't have to ask that much stuff from Zeke. And some breaking news, but we'll talk about that for the NBA, Marcus.
Yeah. Doug, before you get out of here, man, please, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Let everybody know where they can find you and all your content, bro.
Absolutely, man. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on the show. I know it's been a minute since we worked together, bro. And, man, I love this, man. It's always classic, man, when we get together, man. So this was a lot of fun, man. And Sports PSP, very, very nice meeting you today and working with you.
Likewise, man.
We'll be in touch as well, man. You can catch me on YouTube. It's The Touchdown with Doug Smith. I'm on YouTube, and just now approaching a million views total, man. So check us out, man. We'll be rocking full effect. Just coming off a little bit of a off-season hiatus, just moved cross country. But man, if you love anything NFL draft, January through April, it's one of the best places on the entire internet to get live player interviews from both big schools and small schools. And then also as well, I do live shows throughout the year and also as well original content. So check me out, The Touchdown with Doug Smith. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Touchdown Doug. So you guys tap in.
Absolutely, man. Doug, it's always
just subscribe to the channel, my man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, big dog. Thank you, man.
No time, any time, man.
Yes, sir, man. Have a great night, y'all. Thank you so much again.
Yes, sir. Doug, you take it easy, bro.
Take care.
All right, let's switch gears from the gridiron and talk about the hardwood real quick before we get into the next subject, which is Kyrie Irving. Fred VanVleet has just signed a 3-year, $130 million deal to join the Houston Rockets. The Rockets have been making a lot of moves lately. We'll get into that, though, in just a second. Let's talk about Kyrie Irving, who reportedly wanted to find a permanent home because he said the team that he signs with next is going to be the team that he wants to retire with. Well, there were reports that maybe he was going to be visiting the Suns. There was obviously speculation about whether or not he's going to LA to join LeBron. But earlier today it was announced that Kyrie Irving signed a 3-year, $126 million deal to stay put in Dallas alongside young superstar and soon-to-be face of the league, Luka Doncic. PSP, gotta ask you, bro. Can Kyrie Irving flourish in Dallas, and what is their ceiling with Luka and Kyrie in the backcourt?
They're not winning a championship. At best case, they'll probably get to the conference semis. At best, they need defense. Luka's still not great off the ball. He's great on the ball. So you got to surround him with enough scorers or shooters around him. It can't just be Kyrie. I like it for Kyrie, one, obviously, because of the money, $42 million per year. Plus, you're in a state in Texas where there's no state income taxes. So that was the team that was going to offer you the most money available. So he stays there. He seems happy there. So we'll see. But as far as Luka and Kyrie, can they win a championship? No, not until they get more players around Luka and Kyrie in terms of the offense, in terms of shooters and defense. And the thing is with Kyrie, you don't know what's going to happen with Kyrie. I hate saying this, but it's the truth. Kyrie going to pick and choose when he wants to play. Kyrie, I mean, no one has questioned or doubted his talent and production, but the problem with Kyrie is, can you count on him? Can you count on him to be available to games? Not to produce, because we know he can produce. Can you count on him to be available? That is the question with Kyrie. And with this money, I'm concerned about that.
Here's my one issue. When you look at the trajectory of the Dallas Mavericks last season, right? Before he got there, right, they were tied for 5th in the West. After he got there, they missed the playoffs altogether, including the play-in. Here's my one concern. These two teams, these two players, Kyrie and Luka Doncic, they played 16 games together. They lost most of them. This duo does not play defense. This duo has a ball handling issue as it pertains to who the primary ball handler is going to be. Now, we saw in Brooklyn that Kyrie is willing and able to play off the ball. Right. But as you mentioned, PSP, they don't have a big. They don't have any defense. And I've heard a lot of people speculate, well, what about DeAndre Ayton? Listen to me. We all know how I feel about DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is Charmin soft. DeAndre Ayton is inconsistent. And for a guy who was picked number 1 overall by the Phoenix Suns in 2018 over Luka Doncic, over Trae Young, those two guys who have risen to some level of superstardom, more so Luka Doncic than Trae Young, to watch this guy, DeAndre Ayton, who was drafted by the Suns to be the second option next to Devin Booker, a guy who has shown us that he has the capability to be a 25 and 12 guy or a 20 and 15 guy. He's shown us that. He's also shown us he has no problem standing out of bounds and watching his teammates battle with their opponents for offensive rebounds. That is who DeAndre Ayton is. I do not want to see DeAndre Ayton in a Dallas Mavericks uniform because it won't make sense. Now, maybe DeAndre Ayton is doing what all players do when they're unhappy and he just doesn't have his heart into it. Maybe that's what it is. And if that's what it is, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But do I think that Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic can win a championship together in Dallas as currently constructed with this roster? No. There's no defense and there's no reliable shooting. Where are the shooters? Like the wing defenders. Where is all of that? I know it feels like we say this about every single team, but this is the state of the NBA. You need versatile wing defenders who can also shoot the ball, and you need a guy down low, specifically in the Western Conference. Let's call a spade a spade. You need a guy whose only job is to limit Nikola Jokic as much as possible. DeAndre Ayton proved to us this season he's not that guy. So he's not going to be that guy in Dallas if he wasn't that guy in Phoenix, right? That is what that's what the Dallas Mavericks need. They need wing defenders, they need 3-and-D guys, and they need one guy down low that they can rely on to make Jokic work and be the Jokic stopper. That's how this works. That's how it always will work for as long as Jokic is in his prime. I am wary of the long-term commitment of Kyrie Irving.
That's what I lose to.
I know it's such a cliche thing to say, and it's low-hanging fruit. But we're talking about Kyrie Irving here. 3 years, $126 million, as you mentioned, PSP. That's $42 million a year. Now, I don't know the figures as far as how much it is guaranteed. I know all of it's not guaranteed because I know that the Mavericks aren't that ludicrous to do so. But this is a guy in Luka Doncic who is young. He's not 25 yet. We are still in Luka's prime. And when you have a superstar, the caliber of Luka Doncic, you want to capitalize on that as much as possible and keep your championship window as wide as possible to capitalize on as many championship opportunities as you can. And as much as I love Luka Doncic, and as much as I think that Luka Doncic is going to be the face of the league when LeBron and all these other guys are gone, Kyrie Irving is not the running mate for Luka Doncic. So shout out to Kyrie Irving for getting his money. Shout out to his agent for being the first black woman to successfully negotiate a deal. Shout out to her 100%. I don't know her first name. I know it starts with the S. Her last name is Irving. I don't know if they're related or anything like that, but shout out to her for being the first Black woman to successfully negotiate a deal in the NBA. But if I'm Luka Doncic, if I'm the Dallas Mavericks, this is not getting me one step closer to win a championship. That I have a problem with. And for that reason alone, I do not like this move because it doesn't get you closer to a championship.
Her name is Shatila Riley.
Yes.
So I wanted to give you that. Shatila Riley Irving will become the first Black woman to negotiate and compete in an NBA contract. First and foremost, shout out to her. If you give people of color, women, an opportunity, this is what they can do. I agree with you about Kyrie. I've never questioned the production. Is he willing to show up? Is he willing to play? I think they need, and with DeAndre Ayton, since we're going to bring up DeAndre Ayton, you know some of the players that we've mentioned other than Luka and Trey in that draft? How about Jarrett Jackson? He was drafted 4th overall. How about Mo Bamba, drafted 6th overall? Mikal Bridges, 10th overall. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, 11th overall. Michael Porter Jr., 14th overall. Robert Williams III, 27th overall. Jalen Brunson, 33rd overall. DeAndre Ayton has all-star potential. He can give you 18 and 12, 20 and 12. I just think in Dallas, that's laughable. No, he's capable of giving you the buckets, but he's not capable of giving you that type of consistency. So with this team, at best, they'll make the playoffs. They should make the playoffs because of Luka and Kyrie, but it's not going to be enough to win a championship. But happy for Kyrie, happy he got his money because there was no way that he was going to get a huge contract somewhere else. So, man.
Let's talk about that for a second because I want to let's run down the NBA Western Conference really quickly. I don't know if I can say for certain, and again, maybe I'm over exaggerating, but let's just run down the list of teams. Okay, we're looking at the Western Conference. Obviously, the Bucks are not the Bucks. The Nuggets are the Nuggets. They're the reigning champions. They're going to make the playoffs. They'll probably repeat. Right? You got the Nuggets. Look at the Suns. As they fill out the roster, it's looking like maybe they're going to move on from Ayton, but it's like one day they are, one day they're not. They should still be a playoff team. That's 2 teams there. The Kings, they won 48 games last season. That was not a flash in the pan. They'll be back. They might not be the 3rd seed, but they will be back. They'll be back 100%. The Warriors, I don't love the move of Chris Paul. We've talked about that already, but it's the Warriors. You can't count the Warriors out, not when they have Steph, not when they have Clay, not when they just signed Draymond Green to a 4-year, $100 million deal. So you got to give credit to the Warriors. Rui Hachimura just signed a 3-year, $51 million deal to stay in LA. The LA Lakers also have brought in Gabe Vincent from Miami. They are making moves. The Lakers, healthy, they will be back in the playoffs next season. That's talking about 5 teams now. I do think that the Oklahoma City Thunder with Chet Holmgren will at the very least be a play-in team, but I'm going to push the envelope. I'm going to say they're a playoff team. That's 5 teams. I think the Clippers, healthy, playoff team. Grizzlies with Ja, I think can be a playoff team. That's 7 teams there. So now we're talking about we have left over the Timberwolves, the Pelicans, the Mavericks. I do think the Mavericks will be better than the Timberwolves. I do think the Mavericks will be better than the Pelicans, especially if the Pelicans don't have a healthy Zion or Zion at all. So the Mavericks will make the playoffs. Here's the question, though. Of the teams I just listed, Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, Phoenix, both LA teams, Golden State, and maybe OKC, how many of those teams can we definitively say the Mavericks will be better than heading into next season? I'm only willing to say one. It's the OKC Thunder. It's because they're super, super young with no real experience. Other than that, I don't know. I don't have the Mavericks beating the Nuggets in a series. I wouldn't take the Mavericks over the Grizzlies or the Kings or the Suns or the Clippers. So, what are we doing?
Maybe
are
the
we
Suns
competing for champ? Maybe the Suns, because I think the Suns can have some depth issues, right? But
and
even
we've seen
still,
the Mavs beat the Suns.
We have. But even still with the Suns, what I would say is if you're telling me that I have to pick between KD, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal versus Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, 3 is greater than 2. I would take the Suns over the Mavericks just because of the fact that there's not going to be as much stress on KD, Beal, and Booker as there will be on Luka and Kyrie to play perfect offensive basketball because neither team's going to be playing a lick of defense. They're going to be straight shootouts, and 3 is better than 2. I am concerned about the Mavericks' long-term sustainability to potentially win a championship with this move. You've crippled yourself for 3 years is what you've done with this move, and I don't like it.
And the concern, but with the Suns versus the Mavericks, though, the concern is with the Suns. CP3, fine, he's gone. We understand and acknowledge he's not the same player that he was. I think he will be good for the Warriors coming off the bench. I don't see them winning a championship, but I do think it was a move nonetheless that the Warriors had to make because either Draymond or Jordan Poole, and they decided to go with Draymond. With the Suns, however, no point guard. There's concerns about your bench, and there are concerns about a guy who is your big that gives us flashes of what he can be, but we don't see it consistently. DeAndre Ayton to me is a poor man's version of Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis, I think he has a higher caliber, is a higher caliber player, higher ceiling. The problem with AD, other than injuries, the inconsistency. Some games he'll give you 30 and 15, other games he'll give you 10 and 7. And when I look at DeAndre Ayton, he's a poor man's version of Anthony Davis. Not the same type of caliber player as AD, but the common denominator, the inconsistency. So with the Mavericks, and we've seen the Mavericks, Luka is, say whatever you want, but come postseason, Luka puts on a show in the postseason. That we can't argue. And of course, Devin Booker too. Devin Booker, you can argue he can rival that. But Bradley Beal, how long has it been since Bradley Beal has been to the playoffs?
The Wizards were in the playoffs.
I know in 2017.
They were in the playoffs the one year that Russ was there in 2019. They lost to the Sixers in 5. The one game they won was when they hacked Ben Simmons and he had to shoot like 20 free throws or something like that.
Right.
But the last time Bradley Beal was in the playoffs, like competing in the playoffs, not just sneaking in, was when John Wall was there. So it's been a while.
Right. And with KD, is KD going to be we question about health and durability. KD the past couple of years, he's had durability issues himself. So that also does kind of weigh in. Even though that the Suns, they should be the favorites to win that series because as you mentioned, 3 is better than 2. And if you have KD, Devin Booker, or Beal compared to Kyrie and Luka, of course you would take those guys over them because at least they can give you the offense, and certainly they're much better. They're better defensively than Kyrie and Luka. But I can't disregard what Luka can do in the postseason. Kyrie, on the other hand, we know what he can do, but the problem is with him: is he going to show up? That's the concern. But the Suns and the Thunder, those are the 2 teams because of the OKC's youth and the Suns with injuries and as well as other things and depth.
Yeah, absolutely. So one more thing before we get out of here, and actually we'll give our favorite move of the day as well. James Harden opted in to his deal so that he can be traded. Right. If you're a Sixers fan, you're very appreciative because he could have left and the Sixers could get nothing back. Right. There are now supposedly being reports that both the Clippers and the Knicks are in the running and should be strong suitors to land James Harden via trade. But there's also been reports that Tyrese Maxey could be potentially involved in a trade to bring Dame to the city of brotherly love. So if they're trying to bring in Dame, that has to mean that Harden's out the door. Can Harden go to the Clippers and be successful? And then do you think that the Sixers can actually land Dame and essentially steal Dame from where we all know he wants to go, which is Miami?
I think he should go to Miami. As far as with James Harden, the Clippers, and the Knicks, I would like to see him in the Clippers because he could be the facilitator, the primary facilitator for the team, even though he's not what he used to be. 20 and 10, James Harden is still better than any other point guards that are out there. I still want them to keep Russ. I think Russ should stay with the Clippers. finish his career with the Clippers because, after all, you're home. And Russ, to his credit in the playoffs, I thought he played well, other than games 1 and 5, in terms of shooting the basketball. I thought Russ actually played well. It seemed like somewhat of a rejuvenation for him with the Clippers, and they need him as far as scoring, because if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George continuously get hurt, who's going to provide that scoring option besides Harden? I do not want Harden with the Knicks, because him, Jalen Brunson, how are they going to work? Who's going to run the floor? You have RJ Barrett, Julius Randle. Mind you, all those players are left-handed. So, and of course, Harden, what else is he going to give you on the defensive side? Not much. So if you're the Knicks, I wouldn't like it. I think the Clippers would be a better fit. He's back home in Cali. I think he'll be the primary number one for the team. Russ can come off the bench. I think that's a better situation. But the concern, however, Ty Lue, who comes from the Doc Rivers coaching tree. And we saw what happened with Harden and Doc Rivers. How's that going to blend?
Interesting. Of all the concerns, I didn't think we would go Ty Lue. I think Ty Lue's a top 5 coach, maybe top 3.
No, I think he's a great coach, but he does come from the Doc Rivers coaching tree. So how is he and Ty Lue going to work with that? I expect it to work, though.
Sure. Here's the deal. This is, and again, if you know me and you know this show, you know where this is going. I'm done with the LA Clippers. If Harden wants to go to LA, great. Go to LA. You can be little brother to LeBron James. You can be little brother to Anthony Davis. You can be little brother to Gabe Vincent in the crowd there. Like, you can do that. The LA Clippers have earned zero respect. They have earned zero benefit of the doubt. And there is no reason why anybody, fans, friends, family, media alike, should have any faith in LA. I don't care if James Harden gets there, because your two best players are unavailable more often than not. There was a report the other day that said Kawhi Leonard's ready and available to play 82 games. Yeah, we've heard that story before, pal. And what that gets you,
when we'll see.
Not 82 games. I'll believe that you're ready to play 82 games when I check the end of the season and you've actually played all 82 games. That's number one. Number two, the LA Clippers have done nothing. If you remember, PSP, this was supposed to be the new Kings of LA, right? We haven't seen Kawhi Leonard show a lot of personality, but when he got to LA, one of the first things that
the
New Balance did was they dropped a new commercial. And hanging from the key in the ignition of that commercial was a crown. And they were saying, Kawhi was saying, he's the new king of LA. How many championships have the Clippers won since Kawhi has been in LA? Zero. How many finals appearances have the Clippers had since Kawhi has been in LA? Zero. How many conference finals appearances have the Clippers had? One. And Kawhi didn't play that season. So you can add James Harden, fine. And you can keep Russell Westbrook, fine. And you can keep Paul George, done. And Kawhi can play all 82 games, whatever. Here's the fact of the matter. I am with the Clippers where I am with Ja Morant. I don't care what you say to me, bro. Show me. Show me you're willing to compete for a championship. Show me you're willing to be one of the best teams in basketball. Show me you're a threat in the West. Show me, because on paper, when healthy, like, we know who Kawhi is. We know who Paul George is when he's healthy. We know who James Harden can be when he's playing at his best, even at this level. We know who Russell Westbrook can be, but can they all be those things at the same time on the floor together? That I don't know. And so if Harden wants to go to LA to be a Clipper, fine by you, bro. LA is a beautiful city. I'm sure it's much nicer out there in LA than it is in Philly. I'm sure the Clippers fans don't care as much about Philly fans, so you won't get discriminated as much. Sure. I got it. It's definitely not Houston, but hey, it's LA. A lot of opportunities for you to expand the business and expand the brand. I got you, bro. Fear the beard. But if Harden goes to Hollywood and he decides to put on red, white, and blue for the LA Clippers, we will still be looking at James Harden as a guy with 0 rings, because he's not winning a ring for the Clippers. You better find somewhere else to try to win a ring, bro, because it's not going to happen in LA. And again, shout out to James Harden for opting in, because in an inadvertent way, he's actually helping the Sixers, because they can get things back for them that they can then flip for Dame if they want to go that route. James Harden's not winning a ring in LA. He better stay. He would actually be better off staying in Philly if he wants to win a championship. If we're being completely honest, he'd be better off staying in Philly if he wanted to win a championship, because he's not going to get one in LA.
Well, he's not going to win one. And look, questions have been remained. Does he ever care about winning a championship? Does he ever? I mean, that's fair to say. And what I hate so much, man, is the super teams. Like with all these players, like with KD and Harden. So this may be it for James Harden.
Yeah, no, James Harden's going to retire after this. He better.
He better.
He better. There's nothing left. So, really quickly before we get out of here, so the moratorium of free agency opened about 3 hours ago. We've seen a lot of moves. What is the one move from the first day of free agency that you absolutely love?
I like Fred VanVleet. I got to be honest with you. I do like the fact that he's going to the Rockets. I mean, Ime Udoka with the head coach. I mean, they got Jalen Green. They got Jabari Smith Jr., the Thompson twins, Ime Udoka, and also Fred VanVleet, who's an all-star, who can teach these young players to some extent. I like that. I do like the fact that we keep, as a Bulls fan, we have Vucevic, and we also have Andre Drummond. I know you don't like Vucevic, but Vucevic is a nice, solid player. He can still give us 17 and 11. Why? You don't like him?
I can't get with Vooch, bro. I can't. I can't do it. I can't.
You acting like he a scrub. Really?
I just can't get I
What is it that you don't like about him?
I think Vucevic is I think he's inconsistent. And I think when you're talking about the big time matchups against the big time players, so your Giannis's and the Joel Embiid's of the world, in this, and even your Bam Adebayos, he doesn't show up. And that's what it's going to take. And that's the problem. When you play that position, these are the guys you got to go out and you got to go head to head with when it matters. You got to go up against Giannis. You got to go up against Joel Embiid. You got to go up against Bam. He fails. I can't. I'm sorry.
I understand that, Marcus, but at the same time, if we lose them, who are we going to count as our big in order
to blow it up?
You don't think I want to blow it up? You don't think I want to blow it up, but they're not going to do it. You know they
are not going to win a championship with this roster, man. They're not even going to make it. They might not even win a playoff series with this championship. Send Vooch to the highest bidder. Send DeRozan to the highest bidder. Send Levine to the highest bidder and start from scratch. We live in an era of sports now, not just basketball, but of sports, where so many teams are afraid to blow it up and start over. Like, sometimes that's a part of life, bro. Sometimes you have to start from scratch. The Chicago Bulls need to start from scratch. This trio of Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic has run its course. They're not beating the Cavs. They're not beating the Knicks. They're not beating the Heat. They're not beating the Nets. They're not beating the Sixers. They're not beating the Bucks. They're not beating the Celtics. That's 7 teams right there.
But the problem is with Bulls management, they don't care. They refuse to tank. And if you refuse to tank, good luck on missing up talent, because look at all those trades that we had to give up in order to get Vucevic. So, but anyway, I'll still like him because, again, the 17 and 11, even though, to your point, when it comes to elite bigs like Embiid and Jokic and others, I mean, he gets embarrassed. But Fred VanVleet, I do like George Niang to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I do think that's beneficial because they need shooting. So I do like that part for Cleveland. I think they need to be better offensively as a team in order to equal as far as with the defense. But those are the two things so far. Draymond was going to stay with the Warriors. I'm happy about that. And now that's really about it.
There's 2 moves to me that I really, really love, and luckily they both are from the same team. Bringing in Gabe Vincent, who was instrumental and astronomically amazing in the run that the Heat had this season, huge. Retaining Rui Hachimura for a 3-year, $51 million deal is absolutely amazing. You've spent now 3 years and $33 million on Gabe Vincent. You spent 3 years and $51 million on Rui Hachimura. These 2 signings for the Lakers get them one step closer to potentially getting back to and hopefully winning an NBA championship. I do still think that we can still be on the lookout for a Buddy Hield and or Miles Turner attempt in a trade. I know that we all forgot about it because the draft has passed and they didn't use those draft picks in a trade. I do still think that can happen. I don't think we'll see Gabe Vincent or Rui Hachimura involved in those trades, but I do think we could see a potential move for Buddy Hield and or Miles Turner in the near to distant future. What I love for the Lakers especially is that they dodged the Kyrie Irving bullet. That is absolutely what I love.
They did, and they better find a way to keep Austin Reeves as well.
And it is at still at the top of the list. I know he's still among one of the top free agents available. I do think before the weekend is over, before we get to the end of July 4th, I do think Austin Reeves will still be wearing purple and gold. If they're not going to have Austin Reeves, honestly, and this is my personal opinion, I don't think anyone else has ever said that. This is just something I think. If Austin Reeves is no longer a Laker, I do think that potentially opens the door even more for potential Buddy Hield and or Miles Turner trade for those two guys to come from Indiana to LA. I think that's something to look out for. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have PSP on the show for the first time. It was an absolute pleasure to have Doug back on the show today for the first time in a while. Please, very quickly, my guy, before we get out of here, can you please let everybody know where they can find you and all your content?
As you know, man, Sports PSP, go follow me, go like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also go follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. Just continuously coming up with as much content as possible. So hit the like and subscribe, and that's about it. But thank you again, Marcus, for having me on the show, man.
Of course, man, absolutely not a problem. We are right back here. I join my guy Sal Vassallo with Sports in the Big Apple. We'll be right back here tomorrow afternoon. Money in the Bank live from the O2 Arena in London, UK kicks off, of course, 8 p.m. UK time, which is 3 p.m. Eastern time. Or for those of you guys in other time zones, that is 2 p.m. Mountain or 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, 12 noon on Pacific. So my guy Sal Vassallo and I will be here tomorrow at about 1 p.m. to break down the entire call. We'll give our predictions for both the men's and women's Money in the Bank ladder matches. We'll talk about Cody versus Dominic. We'll talk about the Bloodline Civil War. We'll talk about Gunther versus Riddle. We'll talk about the potential return of Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, maybe even Bray Wyatt. There's so much to unpack for tomorrow. So please, please, please come subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network. There's not just me here. There's so much amazing talent up and down the network. You got Burton Dren with Stuff About Sports. You got JT and the Don with the JT and Don All Sports Podcast. You got my guys over at The Divide, Mike and Corey, who go live every Friday on Fox Sports The Gambler. And of course, you got the wrestling guys over there at the High Spot Podcast. So much talent up and down the network. If you don't want to watch what I got, there's 5 other shows for you to tune in, or four or 5 other shows for you to tune into. So please make sure you're tuning in because it's so much stuff happening on. The network is going, business is booming, and it's a great time to be a shot boy. So for my guy PSP, for my guy Dougie Fresh, Touchdown with Doug Smith, this is Marcus with Go Talk of Marcus signing off. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, you guys enjoy the rest of your lives.